At game night, my girlfriend picked her work husband as her partner, joking, "We've got better chemistry." Anyway, the whole room laughed at me, not with me. But I just smiled because I knew something she didn't. The next morning, I sent a very carefully worded email to her company's human resources department, complete with the screenshots from their last business trip. The game we were playing was one of those couple-based trivia games, the kind designed to create awkward moments. My girlfriend Jenna and I were hosting. We had about 8 people over, a mix of our mutual friends. And of course, she had invited Mark. He was her work husband, a term that always made my skin crawl. He was smug, a little too handsome in a generic way, and he always looked at me like I was a temporary inconvenience. I told Jenna I didn't like him, that the whole work husband thing was disrespectful. She just laughed it off, telling me I was being insecure and that their relationship was completely professional. She said their dynamic was a running joke at the office and that it helped them navigate the corporate politics of their firm. We were 2 rounds into the game and my team with Jenna was actually winning. Then came the partner swap round. The host, which was me, was supposed to assign new partners for a lightning round. Before I could even open my mouth, Jenna stood up, holding her glass of wine. She pointed right at Mark. "I'm picking him," she announced to the room. "We've got better chemistry anyway." A few people chuckled nervously, but most of them roared with laughter. It was the kind of laugh that feeds on someone else's discomfort. They were all in on the joke, and the joke was me. Mark just leaned back on the sofa, arms spread wide with a grin that said, "What can I say? The lady wants me." I saw our friend Chloe give me a sympathetic wince, but everyone else was playing along. I looked at Jenna, who was already walking over to sit next to Mark, a triumphant little smirk on her face. The hurt was there, a sharp jab to the ribs, but it was quickly replaced by a cold, quiet, calm. I just smiled. A slow, easy smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "All right then," I said, keeping my voice light. "Team chemistry it is. Let's see what you've got." They won the round, of course. They were annoyingly in sync, finishing each other's sentences about pop culture and history. Every correct answer was punctuated with a high five that lingered a little too long or a shared knowing glance. They were performing for an audience, and I was the chump they were putting on a show for. The rest of the night was a blur of me playing the gracious host, while my insides felt like they were slowly turning to ice. When it was all over, and people were starting to leave, Jenna was still buzzing. She gave me a quick, dismissive kiss on the cheek. "Wasn't that fun?" she asked, not waiting for an answer. She and Mark had spent the last hour in the corner, heads close together, scrolling on his phone and laughing. After everyone was gone, I cleaned up the kitchen. Jenna went to the bedroom, and I could hear her on the phone, her voice low and giggling. I knew she was talking to him. This wasn't new. For the past 6 months, her life had become more and more entangled with Mark's. It started with late nights at the office, then moved to weekend calls to strategize for the upcoming week. 2 weeks ago, they had gone on a 3-day business trip together for a conference. When she came back, she was different, more distant, more dismissive of me. She talked endlessly about the inside jokes from the trip, the great presentation they'd given, the fun they'd had at the hotel bar. I had a gnawing suspicion that it was more than just professional bonding. But I had no proof, just a gut feeling and her increasingly disrespectful behavior. That game night wasn't a mistake or a slip of the tongue. It was a statement. She was showing me and all our friends where I stood. And as I wiped down the last of the counters, I decided I was finally going to listen. I finished cleaning and went into our home office. Sitting on the bookshelf was her old tablet. She hadn't used it in months, ever since she got a new one from work. I had plugged it in a few days ago, thinking I might use it to stream some music. I picked it up. It was still logged into all her accounts, her personal email, her social media. I had never invaded her privacy before, not once in our 3 years together. But that public joke, that laughing dismissal of our relationship, had severed any obligation I felt to extend that courtesy. I told myself I was just looking for confirmation of what I already knew. I opened her private Instagram, the one she kept for a small circle of friends, not the polished one she used for a wider audience, and there it was. Proof. Far worse than I could have imagined. It wasn't just a simple affair. It was a gallery of their trip. Photos of them holding hands at dinner. A picture of 2 champagne glasses clinking together with the city lights in the background. Captioned, "Celebrating a successful merger." Another one, a selfie of them at a fancy spa wrapped in hotel robes with the caption, "Making the most of this work trip." Conference perks. My blood ran cold. The spa, the champagne, the fancy dinner. I knew for a fact that their company had a strict policy on travel expenses. Employees were given a per diem and a list of approved vendors. That spa was definitely not on the list. I scrolled further. I found a picture of a receipt from the dinner, a fancy steakhouse. It was over $400. Her comment underneath to a friend was, "Don't worry, we just called it a client meeting. Mark is a genius with expense reports." So, it wasn't just cheating, it was fraud. They were stealing from their company and bragging about it online to their friends. I took my phone and carefully, methodically, took pictures of every single incriminating post. The photos, the captions, the comments, the receipts. I screenshotted everything. Then I put the tablet back on the shelf exactly where I found it. I went to the spare bedroom and slept on the couch. I didn't feel rage. I felt a strange sense of focus. She had handed me the gun, the bullets, and a signed confession. The next morning, I was up before she was. I made coffee, sat down at my desk, and composed an email. The recipient was the head of human resources at her company, a woman whose name I remembered from a company newsletter Jenna had left on the counter. I knew their company, a major player in the tech industry, had just spent the last quarter in the news for an executive embezzlement scandal. They were on a massive public relations campaign about their new zero-tolerance policy on ethical violations. I knew they would have to take any credible report of fraud seriously and act swiftly to avoid more bad press. The subject line was simple: regarding the Code of Conduct and Expense Policy. The email was polite, professional, and devastating. I introduced myself as Jenna's long-term partner. I explained that I had recently become aware of a potential violation of company policy that I felt obligated to report. I attached the screenshots, all of them, the spa photo, the receipt, her comment about Mark being a genius with expense reports. I wrote that I was deeply concerned that this behavior might reflect poorly on the company's integrity. I ended it by saying I was available to provide more information if needed. I hit send at 8:15 a.m. Jenna came out of the bedroom around 9, looking pleased with herself. She was still riding the high from the night before. "Morning," she said, grabbing a coffee mug. "I'm still laughing about last night. You were such a good sport about it." I didn't answer. I just sipped my coffee and looked at my computer screen. Around 10:30 a.m., I got a text from a friend who works at the same company in a different department. "What the hell is going on in strategy? Rumor is 2 people are getting canned." I didn't reply. The news started to trickle out. By noon, it was confirmed. Another text from my friend read, "Jenna and Mark both walked out by security an hour ago. Laptops, badges, everything confiscated." Holy crap. They had both been fired. With the company already under a microscope for financial misconduct, my evidence was undeniable, and they had no choice but to make an example of them. It was an immediate termination offense. No warning, no severance. Jenna got home around 1 out in the afternoon. I knew the exact moment she arrived because I heard her key slam into the lock, followed by the door flying open. She was pale, her eyes wild with a mixture of panic and fury. She was holding a cardboard box with a few sad-looking desk plants and a framed picture. "You!" she screamed, pointing a shaking finger at me. "You did this. How could you?" I kept my voice calm. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me," she shrieked. "Mark and I were fired. Fired. They said an anonymous tip came in about our trip. It had to be you. You're the only one who would do something so hateful." I just looked at her. "So, you're saying there was something on that trip to report? Something that would get you fired?" Her face crumpled. She knew she had no ground to stand on. The anger dissolved into desperate tears. "It was a mistake. We were just having fun. You've ruined my life. My career is over." "You did that," I said, my voice still quiet. "You and Mark. You cheated, and you stole from your company. I just made sure the right people were aware of it. Now you need to pack your things." She stopped crying, and a look of pure, unadulterated arrogance washed over her face. She actually scoffed, a short, sharp, dismissive sound. "Pack my things? Don't be ridiculous. I'm not going anywhere, and even if I was, I wouldn't be in trouble for long." She crossed her arms, a smug little smile returning. "He'll take me in." "Will he?" I asked. "Of course he will," she said, brimming with confidence. "Unlike you, he actually cares about me. We have a real connection. We have chemistry." She pulled out her phone and dialed his number, putting it on speakerphone to make a point. She wanted me to hear him ride to her rescue. He answered on the second ring, his voice tight with panic. "Jenna, what the hell's going on? My keycard for the garage isn't working." "They fired us, Mark," she said, her voice dropping into a dramatic damsel in distress tone. "They fired us both. That monster reported us." There was a long silence on his end. "Reported us for what?" he asked, his voice suddenly wary. "The trip, the expenses. I don't know. Listen, it doesn't matter. I need you to come get me. He's kicking me out." Another pause, longer this time. When he finally spoke, his voice was cold. "How would he know about the expenses, Jenna? The only way he would know is if he saw those stupid pictures you posted. I told you to keep that stuff off the internet." "I did?" she insisted. "It was on my private account." "Well, clearly not private enough," he snapped. "My whole career is down the drain because you couldn't resist showing off. Do you have any idea how much trouble I'm in?" "We're in, Mark," she corrected him. "We're in this together. But it's okay. We have each other. I'll just come stay with you until we figure this out. I could almost hear the blood drain from his face through the phone. "Stay with me? Are you insane, Jenna? My wife is going to kill me. She already suspects something is going on. If I show up with you and your luggage, my life is over. Not just my career, everything." Jenna's smug expression faltered. Your wife? You told me you were separated. You said the divorce was almost final." "Well, it's not," he shot back. "And she's not going to be understanding about me getting fired for taking my mistress on a spa day on the company's dime. I can't help you, Jenna. You're on your own. Don't call me again." He hung up. The silence in the room was deafening. Jenna stood there, phone in her hand, her face a mask of disbelief. The foundation of her grand plan, the safety net she was so sure of, had just evaporated. She looked at me, her eyes wide with a dawning horror. The reality of her situation was finally truly hitting her. Jobless, homeless, and the man she had thrown it all away for had just revealed he was a lying, married fraudster who wanted nothing to do with her. I didn't say a word. I just pointed to the empty cardboard box she had brought home from her office. "You should probably start packing now," I said. "You have a lot more to fit in there than you thought." She just stared at me for a moment, then sank onto the floor and started to sob. Not the fake, manipulative tears from before, but the ugly, gasping sobs of someone who has lost everything and knows it's entirely their own fault. I walked to the spare room, closed the door, and started gathering the few things of mine that were in the main bedroom. I left her there to pack up the remnants of the life she had so casually destroyed. It took her hours. I could hear her moving around the apartment, punctuated by bouts of crying and the occasional muffled, furious curse. I stayed out of her way. Around 6:00, she was finally done. 3 suitcases and 4 boxes were piled by the door. She looked exhausted and broken. She wouldn't look at me. "Where will you go?" I asked, not out of sympathy, but out of a practical need to know she was physically leaving my property. "My sister's," she mumbled, staring at the floor. "For now." "Okay," I said. I watched as she struggled to drag the first suitcase out the door. She didn't ask for help, and I didn't offer it. It was a pathetic slow-motion exit. When she was finally gone, the apartment felt instantly lighter. The lingering tension of the last few months had vanished with her. I closed the door, locked the deadbolt, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again. The fallout with our friend group was swift. Chloe, the one who had given me the sympathetic look at game night, texted me immediately. "Heard what happened. Good for you. She's been pulling this crap for months." A few others reached out with similar messages. The ones who had laughed the loudest at the joke were suddenly silent. They didn't want to be associated with the drama, especially not when it involved cheating and corporate fraud. Jenna had not only lost her job and her affair partner, but she had also torched her social circle in the process. I spent the next few hours reclaiming my space. I changed the sheets on the bed, cleared her stuff out of the bathroom, and deleted her profile from the smart TV. It was a cleansing ritual. I ordered a pizza, cracked open a beer, and sat on my couch in the glorious, uncomplicated silence of my own home. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt a profound sense of relief. Then around 11 that night, my phone buzzed. It was a text from her. I almost deleted it without reading, but my curiosity got the better of me. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a plea for forgiveness. It was pure, unfiltered entitlement. A final glimpse into the mind of someone who simply could not comprehend the concept of consequences. The text read, "You owe me. I spent 3 years of my life on you. I decorated this apartment. You are going to have to pay for me to get a new place and support me until I find a new job. My sister is a paralegal and she says I have rights." I read it twice. Not a single word of remorse, just demands. After everything she had done, she still saw herself as the victim and me as the person obligated to fix the mess she had made. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel anything at all. I blocked her number and went to bed. Best sleep of my life.